Our theme for this part of February is what love's got to do with it. And last week we talked about, is love enough? And how that can be an integral part of our lives, that it is enough when we remember that it's the self-givingness of Divine Spirit. This week I want to talk about love's way, so that we begin to work with some practical application of love expressing. So the first thing we want to know is that love is God's desire to express itself by means of that which it creates, all that it creates. Love is a way for us to represent, or as you heard me say last week, represent the face of Spirit for ourselves and for those we care about. We remembered last week how the sunshine of love can fill your being, and how when it does, the darkness of negativity dissipates. So think about that. The light of love can fill us and dissipate the dark of negativity. We talked last week about the heart as the symbol of our deepest affections, our deepest emotions, so that whatever we are at heart is the key to what and who we really are. So today, I want to follow that up by talking about love's way, how we take the feeling that we have at times like on Valentine's Day or Christmas or other very special holidays to you. When we receive the loving attention and the help we need right when we need it, how we take those feelings and make them a part of our lives every day, in every way. We all know that we can only perceive the love around us when we feel the love that lives within us. That, of course, is love's way. The love within us brings forth our true and lasting beauty. There's a poignant little story about how that looks sometimes. And I heard this from author Leo Buscaglia, which may be a familiar name to some of you. Here's the story he told. A little boy lived next door to an elderly couple. In time, the lady passed away, or as we say in Science of Mind, made her transition. And one day, the little boy saw her husband outside and noticed that he was crying. So the child went over to the old gentleman's yard. He climbed up onto his lap, and he just sat there. Later, when his mother asked him what he had said to the neighbor, the little boy said, "Nothing, Mom. I just helped him cry." Years ago, Dr. Jack Addington, in an article in Abundant Living magazine, wrote this: "The amount of love we invest in life comes back to us. If we want to know the all-encompassing love of divine intelligence, God, we must love as God loves, pouring it out as the flower breathes its fragrance into space." You see, often the greatest love we can give is to just be in the moment with those we love, or those we don't even know, but who can be surrounded by that love simply because it emanates from us. It doesn't need always to be expressed in words. It doesn't even need to be expressed in specific actions. but rather to be in the space with someone else in love. So when we are filled with love, it's always passing through us. It's always available for us to accept and utilize and express. There's no such thing as I gave my love away and I didn't get anything back, because my source of love is not out there, it's from within. So I can share that and still have all the love there is. And I can share that in silence and still be emitting it, can't I? So as we come to understand that, then we also begin to understand that this is true of other beliefs as well. That my health comes from within. You heard that in one of the Standing in the Light sharing this morning. That my health comes from within. And that's always available to me. That's a universal attribute or quality of creative spirit. And so when I accept that pouring through me, then I begin to get an entirely different viewpoint on what I must do in order to maintain my health. You notice I didn't say create my health, because the creative process is already within me. It's how I express it. And we each do that in individualized ways, with different diets, with different activities, with different levels of activities that may stress some and feed others. We're so individualized. If you go to the farmer's market, you know that. If you watch the way people shop, you know that. If you go to a regular market and watch how people shop, you know that. And if you look at the plethora of possibilities that are available, just where food alone is concerned, not even talking about clothes yet, and yet look around the room. Look at the individuality expressed around the room. And so it goes. You know, these are the kinds of things that come from within on an individualized basis. So as an individual, I can express my love in a myriad of ways, in an endless array of ways. And so can each of us. And yet never be depleted, because that source is always flowing in, around, and through me. David Hawkins is a familiar name to some of you as well, and in his signature book, which you hear me refer to often, Power versus Force, Hawkins reminds us that much of humankind believes that love is an intense emotionality. Now he's starting to sound like Deepak Chopra when he talks about potentiality. And Hawkins is saying emotionality, combining physical attraction, possessiveness, control, addiction, eroticism, novelty, and on, what much of humanity believes. In this frame of mind, Hawkins says, it fluctuates, waxing and waning with varying conditions. And when this kind of love is frustrated, it can sometimes reveal an underlying anger, dependency, even hate. It also provides our society with a whole subculture of humor, and perhaps laughing over our beginning attempts at participating in the art of love can help us to move past some of the results of our immaturity. Like the comment that marriages are made in heaven, but then so is thunder and lightning. Or the story of the two guys talking about their wives, and the first one says proudly, "My wife is an angel." And the second guy says, "Lucky you, mine's still alive." Then there's the one about the woman who rushed home from work, threw open the front door, and exclaimed to her husband, "Pack your bags, I've won the lottery." And he asks excitedly, "Should I pack clothes for cold weather or for warm?" And she said, "Pack them all. You're leaving." Or finally, the description of married life. In the first year of marriage, the man speaks and the woman listens. In the second year, the woman speaks and the man listens. And from then on, they both speak at once and the neighbors listen. In fact, I heard it said once that if you really want your spouse to listen and pay strict attention to every word you speak, talk in your sleep. So see, we do have an intense emotionality around love that looks for its meaning and its value outside our own consciousness. These jokes make us laugh, which is perfectly all right, because they remind us of how easy it is to get caught up in making someone else responsible for how we feel, what we want, and how we go about getting it. For some of us, they're a gentle reminder that we may have some work to do in our own hearts about love's way. That attribute of God called love is unconditional. It's unchanging. It doesn't fluctuate or vacillate because it's a state of being, and it's unaffected by external actions or factors. It relates to the world with support and with nurturing and with forgiveness. It emanates from the heart, which does not judge. And the only desire is whole and complete happiness. So when we open to accepting God's loving presence within us, we enable ourselves to feel love within our own hearts. Feeling that within enables us to see it around us, to feel it from others. I really believe love is contagious, but in a good way. I think that is also part of its essence. When we're a happy, kind person, we reflect and affect those around us in a positive way. When we are around a happy, kind, loving person, it makes us feel good. See, that's that energy field that metaphysically we didn't know 1,000 years ago. We just knew the results. And now we know it's an energy field, and we each have one. And there is an energy pulsing throughout the universe all the time. Now we know that. Before, we could only surmise it by the results of what we saw. So when we're sharing, when we're giving, when we're gracious, generous, we feel valuable and compassionate. When we're in a sharing, giving atmosphere, those same feelings surround and embrace us. We read in the scriptures the words, "As you sow, so shall you reap." Well, that includes love. But you notice it's the sowing comes first, and then the reaping. An 8-year-old asked his opinion of how love works, described it somewhat differently, but with unmistakable clarity. He said, when you get love, you get shot with an arrow or something. But the rest of it isn't supposed to be so painful. Love's way also is not painful. Know that when you accept yourself completely and with love, happiness is the end result, both for you and for those around you. Well, before I close, I'd like to share with you a pass-along. I found this on a website called Heart Warmers, with their invitation to pass it on. It's titled 8 Gifts That Don't Cost a Cent, but in the heart, they're priceless. So here's the first one. And it's the gift of listening. Just offer to really listen to someone. No interrupting, no daydreaming, no judgments or advice. Just listen. The second one is the gift of affection. Be generous with appropriate hugs, kisses, pats on the back, handholds. Let these small actions demonstrate your love. Number 3, the gift of laughter. Clip cartoons, short articles, funny stories. Make copies of them and enclose them in notes or cards. You remember what notes or cards are? They precede emails and text messages, and they still are available for distribution. Share them and invite your loved ones to laugh with you. Eddie and I know someone who sends cards all the time, and they're beautiful messages written inside them, and when you open the cards up, something cute falls out. You know, little characters in bright colors, and it makes me laugh every time I have to bend over and pick up all 42 of them. You know, it's a reminder. It's a loving, positive reminder of this person, even though they're far away. In that moment, they're right there in your heart. Number 4 is the gift of solitude. There are times when people want nothing more than to be left alone for a while. Be sensitive to those times and honor their solitude, even as you expect and appreciate your own solitude being honored. Number 5 is the gift of a favor. Decide that each day, in some way, you will make a point of doing something kind for someone else. It need not be a big thing, just a kind thing. Number 6, the gift of a handwritten note. It can be as simple as thanks for the help or thanks for caring. It might be thought you'd like this, and then enclose a poem, a picture, just something to show that you're thinking of that person. Number 7, the gift of a cheerful disposition. Let me say that again. The gift of a cheerful disposition. The easiest way to feel good is to act like you do. You know, Ernest Holmes says, fake it till you make it. Even though you may not believe it to begin with, or you may not feel like it to begin with, to give it an opportunity to come forth from within you. Many of you have heard me tell the story of a woman that I did spiritual counseling with one time who was having a lot of financial problems. And the litany was long. It came in the form of a written list. And as we talked, I just heard that she was prosperous, that she was prosperous. The truth of her was that she was prosperous. And so we talked about some of the details of it. We did a spiritual mind treatment before she left. And I said to her, one more thing. Between now and the next time I see you, which was normally on a weekly basis, I want to give you an affirmation that you can repeat as often as you choose. But the one time I want you to use this without fail is when somebody says, how are you? You know how people say, hi, how are you? Hi, how's it going? They don't really want to know, do they? I mean, do they really want to hear that list of all the things that have gone wrong in the last 22 years? I don't think so. So I said to her, every time somebody you meet somebody and they say, how are you? I want you to answer them, I am prosperous. And she looked at me like, you gotta be kidding. I'm serious. I am prosperous. Try it. Even though it doesn't sound like the truth to begin with, try it. Okay, well, it was obvious when she left the room that she was not the happiest camper on the hill, you know, no question. And I did not see her the next week. I didn't hear from her the next week. About 2 weeks went by, and she called and asked if she could come in. Yep, you bet. Came through the door, and the first words out of her mouth was, "I was so mad at you." Only that wasn't the word she used. It was a little stronger than that. "I was so mad at you about that. I am prosperous because I didn't feel prosperous. I wasn't happy that I wasn't prosperous. And now I have to tell people I am like it's true and it wasn't." And she said, so for the first several days, probably the first week, I did it, but I didn't do it very graciously because I didn't believe it. But the strangest thing, as that second week began to unfold, it got to be less of an effort. And it got to be, I can do this. And if I can say it, maybe I can do it. And by the end of the second week, when someone said to her, "How are you?" she said, "I am prosperous." And you see the conviction behind, I'm prosperous. I am prosperous. And so it's this kind of thing that I'm talking about, that giving ourselves that opportunity to let our ears hear our words, and gradually we begin to align with that in a positive way. It also works in a negative way, don't you know? So if you prefer to stay in your stuff, you can continue to do what you've always done and get what you've always got. But give this a chance and watch how it not only affects the people around you and the atmosphere around you, but it begins to affect you in a positive way as well. The gift of a cheerful disposition. How are you? I am prosperous. I am well. I am happy. I am loving. And I love that dress you have on today. You see, when I am a loving person, I can love what I see because it's in me. And then finally, number 8, the gift of a compliment. A simple and sincere, "You look good in that color. You did a super job. That was a wonderful meal." That can make somebody's day. That can turn somebody's life around. And if you don't believe that, start reading the Chicken Soup for the Soul books. The story after story after story that you read about how people's lives were changed by a simple act of kindness. It's amazing. And often when you feel called upon to say something like that in what would otherwise seem like a strange circumstance, you may be on the cusp of helping someone change their lives. You don't know it in that moment. You may never know it. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. And the same is true when someone says something kind, complimentary, loving to you, to be a gracious acceptor, to be a gracious receiver of that. Because that's coming from the depths of their soul, their essence. They are being called forth to do that for some reason unbeknownst to them perhaps, that may turn your life around. So be a gracious receiver and accept that compliment. "Oh, I've had that dress for 15 years. But I've revitalized it. You know, haven't worn it for a long time. I haven't worn this for a long time. I had the nicest compliment from someone who came in the door this morning. And I said, well, I've had it for a long time. I didn't say this old thing, but I'm rejuvenating it for sure. So loving yourself is the way you learn to love others. To give of yourself that which is eternal and unflickering in your soul. That which is your source, ever and ever expanding by means of you. Loving yourself is the greatest gift you'll ever give, because it opens you to be able to give everything else that matters in life. Love's way is showing compassion for others and wishing for them what you wish for yourself. Love's way is treating others the way you would like them to treat you. Boy, that goes way back in history, doesn't it? That's one of the oldest writings in the Ten Commandments. Do unto others. Well, all this is saying is treat others the way you would like them to treat you. Love's way is always saying, I love you, to those you care about and who care about you. Whatever may be the issue of the moment, always remember that there is only this moment. Don't let it pass without remembering the present moment is the only moment you get to love somebody. God's divine love is expressing through us all. And you just gotta love that. And so it is.
So it is.
Thank you.